Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome, welcome. You don't have to wear a mask when you're on a Zoom call, you know?
So used to it.
That's not the job yet. I'm in the office. I have to.
It's one thing when you're in another, you're in an office and you're doing it, but
Yeah, right.
it's a little bit different. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Long time no see for those of you who are coming back.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mary.
Good morning.
Morning, Diana. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
Now that we linked. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being so nice about.
That's me. Nice is my middle name. At least that's what they tell me, or my kids don't always tell me that. Good morning, everybody.
I know about that.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning, Regina. Say good morning, say hello, and then join us. We got a big crowd
Good
signed up.
morning.
So we have 61 people in the room, but we were supposed to have 134 who registered. So we're going to give it a couple more minutes. I hope you're all going to have. Once you say good morning, unless you have something else you want to say, please mute yourselves. And welcome, welcome. Those of you I don't know, good morning, Alicia.
We
Alicia's
have a
sitting
couple of people
outside.
here at the Women's Center, so that's why I'm not displaying.
Somebody got a
faces.
class?
Yep.
Oh, that's why you're not displaying. Okay, yeah, it says WRIC class on it.
All right, that's the Women's Rights Information Center. We've got a couple of students here.
Oh, good. That's great. I'm so glad you're on together. That's amazing. Welcome, welcome to JVS. I hope people have some nice plans for the weekend. The weather's actually supposed to cooperate, which is really nice because usually it doesn't. And after last weekend's 98-degree weather, it's very nice to know. I think it's supposed to be in the mid 80s or something, which is perfect. I'll take that anytime. So good morning. Welcome,
morning.
welcome. We're going to give it about 2 more minutes. Good morning, Maribel. We're still about halfway towards our registration. So I know not everyone's going to show, but there should be a couple more people. Come on, but we have a great presentation and a lot of good information to get across to you. So I'm not going to put it off for too much longer. Welcome, welcome. There's a lot of names on here I don't recognize. So I guess we have a lot of first timers and I'm glad to see that. So glad you're here. Sorry, I'm not looking in the camera, but I'm clicking to let people in. So now I'll look at the camera. So welcome, welcome. Everybody good?
Yes.
Susan, I'm glad to see you're on.
Maribel, that's a pretty suit. That's a pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I want to be professional, like pretending I'm going to an interview.
There you go. When we used to do these programs live, people always asked how to get dressed. And I would tell them they don't have to come dressed in a suit because back then everyone wore suits to interviews.
I just do a jacket.
Business casual or business professional or whatever. But I always said you only get one chance to make a good first impression.
That's right.
You never know who's going to be in that room that you're going to want to make a good first impression. The other things people would say is, why am I networking with other unemployed people? And I would always say, because unemployed people have employed friends, employed relatives, employed children. I mean, I joke now that when I go on LinkedIn to look for connections for my clients, not most, but a lot of the connections are through my kids. My kids are in their young 30s. They've all been in the workforce like 10 years. They all have friends who are employed in lots of different industries. And half the time I'm reaching out to my kids' friends saying, and most of them know what I do for a living, especially if it's a close friend. And I'll say, you know what I do? Now I need you to help me get somebody's resume in the door. And they do. So you just never know who the connection is going to lead you to, right?
That's right.
It's also very nice to get dressed up. I like getting dressed up and going to work in the morning.
Yeah, I'm very happy to, you want to see what's on the bottom half of me. There was actually a hysterical picture on LinkedIn of a bunch of people who were dressed for Zoom calls, but they like took a picture of them all standing. So they were all wearing like nice shirts and shorts, pajama bottoms, colored.
That's very funny.
It was the funniest picture. I really liked it. All right, we're up to 70. I know there are more that are going to come in, but it is 10:06. So I'm going to get started here. So first of all, and I will turn over, let me welcome you, Nancy. Where Nancy, you're on a different screen, you disappeared, but Nancy Aronson, my trusted volunteer and helper, since I am a department of one, who will be admitting everybody else and is around to help me monitor. So Nancy, thank you for helping again, and welcome to you. And let me get started. So good morning. For those of you who are new, and I think there are a lot of new people on today's program, my name is Dr. Merrill Canner, and I am the Director for Career Counseling and Placement at JVS, otherwise known as Jewish Vocational Services, located in Livingston, East Orange, and Montclair, and for lots of different reasons. So JVS is an international organization. It's actually fascinating. Someone is putting together some historical something, and I was reading, they sent me an article about the history of JVS that was written in 1980. JVS has been around since 1939. So it's sort of chronicling 1939 to 1980. It was really fascinating to see, but our motto has always been helping people help themselves. Our motto has always been, how do we get people back on their feet when they're unemployed? And they may be unemployed from lots of different backgrounds. We have a very large department that helps people with disabilities, both physical and mental disabilities. We have a very large department that works with recent emigres. And interestingly enough, not so much from the Ukraine now, but they are starting getting some from, their very big population is Haitians actually, which is very interesting. So if you speak French and you want to volunteer, they could always use some volunteers over there. And then there's our department that helps what I've coined, not so correctly, middle income unemployed. But what I say is that we work with people from the mailroom to the boardroom, and from age 18 to, I've had clients in their 80s, but mostly 65, 70s. Most of our clients are 50 plus. But I did just land a client who's 28, so that's exciting as well. And what we do with you is two things. One is we teach you to be the best job searchers you can be, including all of the basic skills that you learn on a lot of our programs. And the second, and just as important, is we're there to help motivate you and keep you going and supported during the job search, because we all know that job searching sucks. I didn't say that out loud. So my goal is to keep you going. If you have the best resume, you know how to network, but you can't get out of bed in the morning to do the things you're supposed to do, that's a problem. And that's what I do as a coach at JVS. It's a sliding scale, low cost fee. So if you have any questions, you will see my information in the chat box a million times during this program. Feel free to reach out to me. I do want to let you know that we are fully funded by Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West. Without them, I could not do my job, because I have a job and I would be on the other side of the screen. And so we thank them greatly for their funding. We are also partially funded by the Helen Kozlowski Foundation in memory of Helen Kozlowski. So we thank her and her family. And the last thing I don't want to forget, which is why my little post-it here on the side of my screen, which is something we teach when you do interviewing, you want to make sure you have your post-its, is that I want you to all save the chat box. So, and I'm going to remind you again at the end, because that way you will get the whole chat box. But if you go to the bottom, if you have chat open, which you should, and you go to the right bottom where there are three little dots, and if you have your little cursor over the three little dots, it says more. And then you will see at the very top that it says save chat, and you click on that. And with me at the end of the program, and we'll do save chat at the end, it will pop up into your, whatever, on your desktop or wherever it pops up onto. So that's the way you'll get the chat. So if you want to post things in there, like who you are, where you're from, I want you to concentrate on the speaker. But if you want to make sure that you get the contacts from all the people who are posting in the chat box, do that later, so you have the chat box. Make sure you're muted, except if you have a question. Our speaker will inform you that how she wants to handle questions as we go along. And right now, I think that's all the housekeeping business. So let's get going. Where is our speaker? How come I don't see her? Amy, you there?
I'm here. I'm
Oh,
right
there
next-
you are. Great. I'm going to read your bio now.
Great.
Amy Geffen is a trainer, educator, author, and career coach. Amy Geffen, PhD, sorry. Dr. Amy Geffen. She brings to her practice over 30 years of experience in such industries as finance, engineering, higher education, risk management, health, nonprofit, and associations. Like, she's worked everywhere. She has a bachelor's degree from Brooklyn, a master's from Harvard, and a PhD from NYU. Our competitors, my PhD is from Teachers College. But there was a lot of mixed blood between NYU and Teachers College. So I'm going to before I say anything else, Amy's PowerPoint, I will post a link to the PowerPoint in the chat box so that you don't have to sit here scribbling notes about everything she says. You will have access to the PowerPoint after the program, and I thank her for that. So Amy, take it away.
Okay, thank you very,
Well, Amy, now you are reverberating, which didn't happen before.
I know, I don't know what's wrong with that. Maybe it's too loud.
Amy is having a little problems with the microphone. being loud enough, so make sure-
This is not good. Can you hear me now? You know what?
It's still reverberating.
So I'm sorry if I may.
Meryl, mute her first and she can fix it.
Okay, 1 second.
I don't know, but I took out my headset and it's still
Where is she?
reverberating.
I gotta find her.
I think you have two devices hooked up, like you have it on two
Yeah.
separate. There's two Zooms going on at the same time.
One of them is gonna have to be muted, the shared screen one.
That's the problem, because we did this before, but we didn't do with talking while she was sharing the screen.
Regina's right about that.
Right now I've muted her.
Everybody has to mute, including you, Meryl. Everybody has to be muted.
Okay, well, I don't think that's the problem, but I will mute myself.
Well, let's try this again then. I want to know if everybody can hear me. Now, I took off my headset. Okay.
That works.
All right, so I took off the headset. Very good, it's working. Yeah, so just let me say, I not only walk the walk, I talk the talk, I walk the walk. I've changed jobs 13 times. I've changed careers 3 times. I started doing career coaching 8 years ago when I lost my last job, and the only job I ever lost as a CEO of the New York Society of Security Analysts. And I became a client of an outplacement company. I learned coaching from them. I found additional jobs. I kept working and I started my coaching business. So there you have, I'm not going to read this all, but you'll get a copy of all the different places I've worked. Financial Women's Association, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, Risk and Insurance Management Society, Westchester Community College, Long Island University. Okay. What are we going to talk about today? What is the hidden job market? How do you do a self-assessment of your skills, your interests, your values, and your accomplishments? How do you create a job targeting map to help you with your search? How to expand your network. Networking is the key to finding the hidden job market. And as Meryl mentioned, everyone you know knows people who are working in some capacity. How do you reach out? Through direct mail and targeted mail, emails. What do you say at meetings? And how do you follow up after a meeting? Now, I'm going to divide this up into about 5 different sections, and I'll take questions after each section. So hold your questions. It'll be maybe 7 to 10 minutes between each section. So the job search is a 5-step process. Doesn't matter what job you're going for, what industry you're in, how old you are, how young you are. It consists of assessment, branding, connecting, differentiating, and enhancing. And the hidden job market is in the connecting piece, but we're going to go through all the pieces. So what is the hidden job market? Here you see a visualization of King Tut's tomb and all the treasures that were hidden inside. What is this hidden job market? Everyone knows that you can apply for jobs on the internet. Indeed, Monster, Idealist.com, LinkedIn. There are millions of jobs on the internet. More than 427,000 people are applying to jobs on Monster alone. But did you know that 2 to 5% of job seekers actually get a job through the internet? 60 to 80% of job seekers get a job through networking. And about 40% of job seekers get a job by directly contacting a hiring manager. Now, what's the hiring manager? It's not human resources unless you work in human resources. The hiring manager is the person in charge of a department. It could be a director, a managing director, a vice president. The person in charge of the department where you would want to find a job. So how do we do this? Unadvertised jobs are a hidden job market that account for about 80% of hires. according to Forbes. 70% of all jobs are not published on job sites, and as much as 80% are filled through professional and personal connections. And even if a job is advertised, they may already have someone in mind for that job. Maybe they're promoting from within, or maybe one of their employees has recommended someone, or maybe someone's hiring, their brother-in-law's sister's cousin. What are the job sources? This is an approximation. Referrals, 24%. A career site, 17%. Job boards, 18%. A direct source, a LinkedIn or a resume. A third-party recruiter, temp to perm. These are the different places where you can see jobs, but that's not necessarily how you're going to get your interview and ultimately get a job offer. For example, if you were to apply for a job online, 1,000 people will see a post. Maybe 200 will begin to apply. About 100 people will complete the online application. 75 of those 100 resumes will be screened out, either by the ATS, which stands for Applicant Tracking System, or a recruiter. 25 resumes or so will be seen by the actual hiring manager, and maybe they'll invite 4 to 6 or at most 10 people for an interview. And then there'll be a second interview, and then there'll be a final interview, and maybe 3 people get to the final interview. 1 person will be offered that job. 80% of people receiving an offer will accept it, because not every offer is what someone is looking for. So what are the odds of you getting a job by answering online? 2 to 5%, not a good percentage. What is the hidden job market? These are the jobs that are not posted online, they're not advertised. Years ago, ads would go in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or a trade journal, or if you're in higher education, the Chronicle of Higher Education. A hiring manager knows months in advance that he or she will have to fill a position. Either they're going to be firing someone who's not doing a good job, or someone's quitting and found another job, or they're expanding and they're adding a position. Therefore, your job as a job seeker, and that is a job, you want to meet as many people as possible in your field so they get to know you and they think of you when they know there is going to be a job opening. Why do employers choose other alternatives than posting an ad online? It seems so easy. Well, it's cheaper than paying for a service. They're more likely to get quality applicants from current employees. There's an opportunity for team building through referrals. And in some corporate cultures like Google or Facebook, there's a lot of pride in the idea of a certain type of worker. So if someone is working at a company, they understand the culture and the kind of people they're looking for. And if they recommend someone to be interviewed, that person has a better chance of being accepted and offered a position. Okay, before we go into self-assessment, if you have any questions, let's see if you have questions. You can either raise your hand, put them in the chat. How do you switch fields? Okay, we didn't get there yet. You can't switch fields till you know what your skills are. So we will talk about that. Any other questions? Getting around the ATS. Okay, that's a great question. ATS, Applicant Tracking System. First of all, your resume needs to include the keywords and key phrases that appear in the job description. If your resume does not match 85 to 95% of what's in that job description, no human being will ever look at your resume. That's the first thing. So each time you apply for a job, you need to tailor your resume and your cover letter to that job. Second thing, if you apply online, you also need to network your way into the company. How do you do that? by seeing if you know someone in your network or make a connection with an alumni from your college or high school or graduate school who knows someone who works in that company. You need to try to network into the company and reach the hiring manager. Those are the only two ways to get around the ATS system. Otherwise, don't waste all your time answering ads online. Other questions before we move on to the next section? Is it wise to contact the hiring manager over the recruiter or HR manager for a position? That's a good question. If a recruiter is recruiting, you don't want to go around the recruiter. You want to develop a good relationship with that recruiter, because if you don't get this job, the recruiter might use you as a candidate, a possible candidate for another position. So you don't want to develop a bad relationship with the recruiter. Now, if the ATS system usually goes to HR, so yes, you still apply, you go to HR. And again, if you know who the hiring manager is, or you can network into the company, then you also want to send to that person. Other questions? Let's see what else is here. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. All right, we're going to go on to your self-assessment. In order to figure out your job target, whether you're staying in the same field or you're changing fields or changing industries, you need to conduct a self-assessment. What does that consist of? What are your top 25 accomplishments? Now, maybe you can't think of 25, maybe you have 10 or 15. An accomplishment is something very specific, a problem, an action, a result. And we'll get to those and I'll show you some examples. Your 7 stories. From those 25 accomplishments, pick 6 or 7 that you are proud of. And you write up a story explaining what was the problem, what was the situation, who did you work with, what did you do, what were the results, what skills did you use. From these 7 stories, then you check off all the skills you used in each story. And you will be able to see what are your best skills. What are your 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 best skills? What are the job kind of environment do you want to work in? What's the culture? Do you want to work in a casual environment? Do you want to work in a corporate environment? Do you want to work in for-profit or nonprofit? And what is your unique value? What do you bring? What makes you different from other people who do the same thing? So this is the overview of the self-assessment. Now let's dive in. In your resume and in your LinkedIn profile, you're going to list accomplishments at the top. You're going to pick your top 3 to 5 accomplishments. You're going to include a bulleted list using problem, action, result. Your accomplishments that you put at the top of your resume will also appear under the actual job further down the resume. Under each job title, you're going to have 3 to 5 accomplishments. If it's a recent job, you can have 5. If it's a job you did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you can have maybe 2 or 3 accomplishments. But an accomplishment must answer the question, so what? What was the result? Did you meet or beat the budget? Did you make money? Did you save money? How many people did you train? What was the rating you received? How many new events did you plan? Expertise. The second part of your resume is going to have expertise. That's your skill set. You can call it competencies or skills or expertise. Once again, use keywords from the job description as long as you have those skills. Use strong verbs such as writing, analyzing, organizing, creating, launching. So you want to put this not only in your resume, but also in your LinkedIn profile, because hiring managers, recruiters, and headhunters are all looking on LinkedIn. They use Boolean searches by keywords to find viable candidates. So why are we spending so much time on accomplishments? The accomplishments form the foundation for your job search. You're going to use your accomplishments in your pitch, in your direct mail, your targeted emails to people to get meetings, in your cover letter when you apply for a particular job, in your resume, in the LinkedIn profile, in the interview, and when you follow up after you've had a meeting with someone, whether it's a meeting just to get information or it's an actual job interview, you will also use their accomplishments in that follow-up email. So this is the rubric we use for problems. Problem, action, result. PAR. What was the problem you had to solve? What action did you take? And what was the result? So here are some examples. These are made up, but gives you the idea. Reduce customer complaints by 22% in a 6-month period by conducting 45 technician programs. Exceeded annual sales quotas over 15% average for each year over 3 years. Saved $200,000 through benefits redesign. Saved $3 million by implementing a cost reduction, productivity, and quality improvement program. So these are just examples. Notice each one starts with a verb. Each one has numbers, percents, time, or dollars. All right, so here's some examples again, before and after. Let's say you say, well, I successfully managed partnerships. Well, what does that mean? Doesn't give you very much information. Here's a better way of saying the same thing. Managed events with over 25 industry associations and achieved an increase of 60% in strategic partnerships. Here's another example. Developed and published metrics to increase call center productivity. No numbers. You need to show numbers or percents. You could say develop metrics, which were posted daily. Within the first month, productivity increased by 33% and call length dropped by 15%. And another example. Led a team of 10 staff people to design a conference. So how many people attended this conference? Was it successful? Led a team of 10 to design and implement the first India and oil gas conference, resulting in 150 attendees. So that's the end of this section, and let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Question about online posts. Many jobs are listed as remote, but when you open it has many references to on-site responsibilities. How can you find out about the job? I've tried job boards and reaching other people. Well, how do you find out about a job? The best way, of course, is to find someone who works in that company. All right. And if you don't know anybody who works in the company, it's going to be pretty difficult. So we're going to talk about networking and how you're going to find other people soon. And I'll save the answer to that question for a little bit later. To be competitive and keep up pace with the ATS, how to be honest about experience and skills and tailor the resume. It's hard to get into the job market, even for entry level. How to target the job market. All right. Well, there are entry-level jobs, and if you don't have any experience, if you're a recent college grad, I'm working with a couple of my clients, twin young women who are recently graduated, actually this month. You have to look for jobs that say entry-level. There are a lot of entry-level positions, and you're gonna have to find them, or you make your list of companies where you want to work, and you write to say you want an entry-level position in a particular department, whether it's marketing or it's IT, or it's finance. Now, let me get to the other question. There was another question. So yeah, there are a lot of entry-level positions. Insurance companies and real estate companies are always looking for new blood, young people who want to learn. They'll train them. They'll even pay for them to take the exam. So if you're interested in sales, insurance and real estate are two good things to look for. Now, what if you're relaunching and the last job was over 15 years ago and your former bosses are either dead or in assisted living. Okay. What you need to do is think about, well, what have you been doing for the last 15 years? Have you been doing volunteer work for your PTA, for your synagogue or your church? Have you been keeping the budget at home or doing the investments for home? You need to think again, what accomplishments have you done in the last 15 years? You can't, your former bosses are dead. You're going to have to do more connecting with people you know and alumni through LinkedIn. Any more questions before we go on to the next one? Okay. So the thing about having worked a long time ago, it would have been great had you asked those former bosses to write a recommendation for you and you kept that piece of paper. I have files from when I worked 20 years ago, and I've got letters from people. So that's water under the bridge. You can't do that now. So you're going to have to look for other people, perhaps colleagues that are still alive and well that you can talk to and who might write a recommendation for you. Your job target. A job target consists of 3 things. A job title, such as program manager, such as entry-level sales, an industry, finance, pharmaceuticals, health and wellness, education, a location, New York metropolitan area, Washington, D.C. area, Seattle, San Francisco. So a job target consists of 3 things. If you are able to move and willing to move, you can expand your job search beyond the New York metro area. If you want to stay in this area, then you have to concentrate on the New York metropolitan area. So, what's the primary industry you want to work in? You may have done one thing in an industry, but now you want to do something else in the industry. It's easier to change to another job doing the exact same job in the exact same industry at a different company. That's the easiest job to get. It's more work to get a job, same job, but in a different industry. But what you can do during the interview process is show that you are a quick learner and you can learn everything you need to know about the industry. It's your skills that you're being hired for. So it's a lot easier to learn about an industry than it is to build your skill set. What's the position? Job title? And it's good to look at different job titles and read the descriptions, because often it's hard to know what is that job. Program manager can mean a lot of different things in different industries and different departments. And the geographic location. Once again, you have to decide, are you staying where you are now? Is it a remote job? Can you actually telecommute and work from home, or is someone
Along on our website would be.
Please mute yourself. Perhaps it says it's a remote job, but in fact, you have to come into the office several days a week. Well, if the office is in Washington, D.C., that's not going to happen. So you really have to find out the details, and that will come through. If not in the job description, it will come out during the interview process. So you're going to create what we call a job target map. Select 2 or 3 industries where you want to work. Do your research and you make a list of the companies, the organizations, the associations, the schools where you want to work. And you write down, well, what's the number of possible positions? Meaning, if you wanted to work in a bank, all you need is 10 banks, because banks have lots of tellers and lots, even with the ATMs, they still have lots of tellers. So you wouldn't need that many banks to apply for, because they have lots of positions for bank tellers. If you are a financial officer and you want to look for a CFO position, a C-suite chief financial officer position, you're going to need 200 companies, because each company only has one chief financial officer. On the other hand, if you're looking for an event planner or a program manager, there are some companies that have 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 of those. So maybe you need only 40 companies. If you're in media and you are a journalist, are you writing for paper media, online media? Are you doing online speaking? You need to decide which companies, which cities, how many positions do they have for a writer, a journalist. Here is an example of the job target map. So let's just say the industry is media, the title is feature editor, New York City, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And let's say there are 10 companies in New York City that have the feature editor, and each company maybe has 4 feature editors. So that's 40 positions. Let's say New Jersey, there are 8 companies. Each company has 2 positions. That's a possible 16. In Connecticut, let's say there are 18 media companies. There are 4 possible positions in each one. That's 66. This is not about openings. This is not about ads you have seen for openings. This is about organizations and how many possible positions exist. Why? Once again, the hiring manager knows someone is leaving, someone's going to be fired, someone's going to be promoted, someone's going off on maternity leave. And so these positions are in play and they may not be advertised. So all of you are going to get a copy of this, and you have on the next 2 pages, you have an example of this Excel spreadsheet. The industry, the position, the location, the name of the company. Ranking the opportunity. Is it a 1, 2, or 3 for you? How do you connect to the hiring manager? What's the path? Who do you know there? Your contact's phone number, your contact's email, and then you can take notes. When you've emailed that person, put the date in. When you call that person, put the date in. You had a phone call. What happened during the phone call? So this is your target map. How are you going to use this target map? The completed target map is a planning tool. It's a tracking tool. You can keep track of the companies, of the people you've met with. It gives you a clear direction, helps you identify and prioritize every company in each target. It helps you see whether the opportunities are open or hidden. It allows you to understand the techniques you're going to use to get a meeting. Move this out of the way, get that up here. Sharing excerpts or pieces of the map streamlines networking, because when you get a meeting with someone in your network or a new connection you've made through that person or through LinkedIn or through your alumni association, you can share this list of companies and ask them, do you know anybody who works here? Can you introduce me? Can you think of any other company or organization that I should add to my target map? So, questions so far on this section before we go on to networking? Okay, the attachment of this PowerPoint is in the chat box for those of you who need it. See position. No position. Okay, I don't see any questions yet. What if your field is industry agnostic? Okay, meaning it doesn't matter what industry you work in. Then you're open. You can go to other different industries. That's fine. If what you do is transferable to different industries, that just gives you a wider option. So it's okay. You may have to tweak your resume slightly to show what you know about a particular industry, but certainly it's your skill set that is transferable. Other questions? All right. If there are no other questions, let's move on because we'll take questions at the end as well. So let's talk about your network and how you're going to expand your network. Who's in your network? Look at all these people. Your family, your friends, your coworkers, your prior coworkers, former coworkers, your former supervisors, your personal accountant, your lawyer, your hairdresser, your gym trainer, your dog walker, everyone you know. Well, you may say, well, why would I want to even tell my hairdresser I'm looking for a job? The answer is everyone has their own network of anywhere from 100 to 200 people. And you don't know who these people know. They might know someone who works in a company where you want to work. They might know someone who works in an industry where you want to work. And so the first thing is to make your list of all these people, and then you're going to start contacting them, calling them up or emailing them to have a quick chat. How are you going to expand your network? How many of you belong to a professional association for your profession? Put it in the chat, yes or no. I want to see how many of you actually belong to a professional association. Write it in the chat, yes or no. Oh boy, no, 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 no. Yes, a few, yes, yes. 3, no, 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 no. Yeah, it's kind of evenly split. Why is it important to belong to a professional association? If you're in a field, you want to get to know other people in the field who are not in your company. So, professional associations are not-for-profits that exist for the sole purpose of keeping you informed, providing continuing education, providing events so that you can network and meet other people and learn everything there is to know about your field. When I was an association executive, I belonged to the New York Society for Association Executives. It's an association of association people. And I belonged for over 20 years. And I met a lot of people there. And ultimately, they helped me in my career in terms of learning new things and getting new jobs. So joining a professional association is extremely important. Not only do you have to join, but you do have to attend meetings. Now, a lot of them, of course, are having Zoom meetings now. And for women, I suggest if there is a special association just for women in your field, belong to that as well. So for example, there is a New York Women in Film and Television Association. Alumni Association. How many of you belong to your alumni association or are in touch with people in your alumni association? All right, that's important. How do you find out about people who are alumni? And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because this is so important. You know, LinkedIn profiles are for individuals. Well, schools and companies also have LinkedIn profiles. To find your members of your alumni association, to get in touch with them, you go to LinkedIn, you type in the name of your college. So I'm a graduate of Brooklyn College. I type in Brooklyn College, then I click on alumni. Well, guess what? There are hundreds of thousands of people who went to Brooklyn College. So I need to narrow that down. So first I narrow it down by years of graduation. I'll say 2000 to 2020. Then I want to narrow it down by city. And you can pick New York metro area or Chicago or Washington, D.C. So you narrow down by where they are living. Then you can see where do they work. And you will see a list of companies where those alumni living in your city work. You can click on each company, and down below, if you scroll down on the page, you will see the names and photos of alumni from your school who work at that company, and you can connect to them on LinkedIn. You click on the word connect, and then you write a personal note. Never connect to somebody without a personal note. It's very simple. You say, oh, we are both alumni from Brooklyn College or XYZ University. I'd like to connect you on LinkedIn. When they say yes and they connect, then you send a second message. In your second message, you say, I'm going through a career transition. I'd love to get your career advice. Do you have time for a 10-minute chat? Most alumni will be willing to chat with you. You say 10 minutes, they'll wind up spending, 15 minutes, a half an hour with you on the phone. What's the purpose of this chat? We'll get into what you're going to talk about, where you're at. First, you ask them about themselves. What do they do? How do they like working for that company? Where did they work before? What's their career path been? And then you give them your pitch and what you're interested in. Third way, expand your network. Join a club. Maybe it's a book club. Maybe it's a poker club. Maybe it's a mahjong club. Maybe it's a bowling club. Depending on your personal interest, join a group that shares your interest. So not only will you have something in common with them, and then you can learn more about their networks and who do they know. Do volunteer work for a cause you're passionate about. As a volunteer, you will meet other volunteers who share your passion for the mission of the organization, whether it's JVS or American Cancer Society or Leukemia and Lymphoma or whatever. And as you work as a volunteer and you meet these people, you get to know them, and then you can talk to them about your career transition. Join a civic or religious organization. The Elks, the Masons, the Lions, a synagogue, a church, a mosque, a temple. Another way to meet new people, get to know them, they get to know you, you build relationships. Building your network is farming, not fishing. What do I mean by that? Fishing, you catch fish, you go out, you catch a fish, that's it. For the day, you eat a fish. Farming takes time. Farming, you have to till the soil, you have to plant the seeds, you have to water the plants, you have to take care of the plants. Farming is cultivating. What you want to do is not just meet people once and done. You want to cultivate relationships through your associations, through your clubs, and through your volunteer work. So, you have to follow up with everyone you meet. If you go to a meeting, whether it's on Zoom or it's live or it's a coffee, you meet someone for coffee or lunch, you have to follow up with an email, and you have to stay in touch with these people every 4 to 6 weeks. As I said, networking is like farming. You're sowing seeds for the future. You're cultivating relationships. It's not like fishing. You need to think long term. I had a job at the College of Insurance years ago, which is now part of St. John's University. And the woman who had hired me at that time was president of the College of Insurance. She moved on to TIA-CREF. Then she moved on to RIMS, Risk and Insurance Management Society. I moved on from the College of Insurance to National Multiple Sclerosis Society. And then I moved to Westchester Community College. After 4 years there, I was looking for another job. I contacted this person, this woman, because I needed her as a reference, and she was contacting me. Guess what? 10 years after she had hired me the first time, she hired me the second time. Okay? It's all about relationships. When I was at Westchester Community College, I hired a gentleman to work with me on distance learning. 1995, okay? Hired him. 5 years later, I had moved on. I worked for the American Society of Mechanical Engineers after RIMS. I hired the same guy. I hired him away from Westchester Community College. They weren't very happy about it, but I was, because I needed him to work with me on online learning again, using Blackboard. So it's very important to keep up your relationships. Okay, let's take some more questions and then we'll go to getting meetings. Let's see, we got some things in the chat. Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Question. There are groups on LinkedIn which have similar, for people with similar interests. Absolutely, you can join on LinkedIn. But again, you need to have a one-to-one with someone, either face-to-face or on Zoom or coffee or virtual coffee. It's important to talk to people individually.
You are unmuted.
Please mute yourself, write your questions in the chat. Any other questions on what we've been talking about? And we will have time again at the end for questions. All right, let's move on. How to get meetings. So, how are you going to get a meeting? Let's say you do your research, you have your list of companies, you found out the name of someone or some people who work at that company. Either you can get introduced from one of your primary contacts, you can write directly to the hiring manager, someone who's 1 or 2 levels above the job title. You follow up the email with a phone call if you have that person's phone number. So, direct emails. Write an email to a specific person. You say, I'm interested in working with your company, give the name of the company on, and give what you do. Number 2, your pitch. I have 2 years experience, or I have 10 years experience in medical credentialing, and I know I can contribute to your company. Paragraph 3, here are some of my recent accomplishments. Give 2 or 3, not much, 1 sentence. Paragraph 4, I'd welcome the opportunity to discuss further how I might contribute to name of company. If you have a list of 100 to 200 companies, you cannot call everyone. So direct email is just that. It's an email explaining who you are, welcoming the opportunity to talk, but you're not saying you're going to call. Targeted emails are to people at companies where you definitely are going to make a phone call. Same thing. Why are you writing? Oh, I'm so impressed with what your company is doing in XYZ. I'd love to contribute. I have X number of years experience in such and such. My best skills are, list 3 skills. Here are some examples of my accomplishments. I'd like to meet you for 15 minutes at a mutually agreeable time and shall call you in a day or 2 to arrange a meeting. Then you have to call. Now, it may take a while to call. Why? Because people at certain levels often have an administrative assistant. They have someone who's screening their calls. They don't want to be bothered. So how do you get around that? Don't leave a message. Say, oh, when is Mr. or Ms. So-and-so back in the office? Try calling before 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. Let's say you get the administrative assistant and who asks, well, what's your name? What's this in reference to? And you say, this is about an email I sent to Mr. or Ms. So-and-so, and he or she is expecting my call. Because it may take a few calls, and if you keep leaving your name and number, it'll look like you're stalking them or you're spamming them. Okay, questions on this before we get to what are you going to say at meetings? Let's see if there are any questions in the chat. Best way to get email format with a company without calling and asking them. Okay. Again, you can go to the company LinkedIn profile and look up people, not jobs, but people who work in the company. Open up their profiles and see if there's an email address. The other thing you can do is there are only 4 or 5 possible email addresses. Even if it's info at such and such, it's either the person's first initial last name or first name, last name, or just first name at nameacompany.com. Or if it's a not-for-profit, it's .org. So you have to do a little research. Now, of course, the easiest way is if you already know someone at a company, or you can find somebody's email from that company and then figure out, well, I have a different name. How do I put that name into the company's email address? It does take time. Okay. What do you say at the meetings? Let's say you get a meeting finally. So 3 + 3. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Then you give your pitch or your personal little intro. Some people don't like to call it an elevator pitch. It's a personal intro. And you say, I'm doing research into the name of your company and your industry. I'd like to learn more about your company. What are the challenges you're facing? Tell me about your career path. Then you can tell them about yourself. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm interested in doing. How could I make a contribution to your company? And then before you leave this meeting, at the end of the meeting, this is where you can ask them for some career advice. Show them your list of companies from your target map and say, do you know anybody at any of these companies? Would you be willing to introduce me? And then say, can you think of any company or organization that I might add to my list? So at the end, you show them your target map. You say, do you know anybody who works at these companies? Could you introduce me? Maybe you'll get a yes, maybe you won't. Can you think of any companies I should add to my list? Thank you for your time. Now you're still going to send a follow-up email. Every time you meet with someone, or you meet with 2 or 3 people at the same time around a table, you need to send each person a follow-up. First paragraph, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me today. Second paragraph, I learned that your company is busy working on, fill in the blank, what's their challenge, what's their project. Paragraph 3, as I mentioned, my best skills are in, list 3 or 4 skills. One of my accomplishments that's relevant for your company is, and then your last paragraph, I will take the liberty of staying in touch with you every few weeks, and you must do that. So you've got your target list of companies, you put the person's name in there, you put the date in that you met with them, you put the date in you sent the email, and you put on your calendar, please mute yourselves. You put on your calendar for 4 weeks to contact that person again. So now what do? Keep in touch with all these people. Keep them in the loop. So what are you going to say to them in 4 weeks when you write again? You say, oh, this is what I've been doing on my job search. You can tell them, I have been researching companies. I went on 2 interviews. I read this article that I thought might be interesting to you, and you send them a copy of an article from the Wall Street Journal or from a trade journal or something you saw online. You send them a link to something. You keep relating to them. You keep building your network, meeting with more people, talking to more people, connecting to more people on LinkedIn, through your alumni, and through your professional association. You keep emailing once a month and keep having meetings, one-to-ones online. I don't expect you to have live meetings. Final tips. Wake up every day early. Get started on your job search. If you are not working at all, your job search should be your job. You should be spending 35 to 40 hours a week. Network aggressively. Look for connections in companies with people you want to work with. And have a networking mindset. What does that mean? You want to be interested in learning about this other person and learning about their company. You want to ask a lot of questions, and then you want to listen actively and take notes to remember what this person is telling you about their company, about their industry. You want to make connections and make introductions. Perhaps you can introduce this person to someone else. It's about being collaborative. Networking is not just what you can get out of it. It's what you can offer as well. Information, introductions, resources. Now, this may sound difficult, but you've got to do it. Make 100 new connections a month. Basically, that's 3 a day. That's not a lot. You get on LinkedIn. You start with your list, the first list we started with. Your friends, your family, your personal people, your former colleagues and supervisors. You start by contacting them, setting up one-to-ones online or by phone. You go on LinkedIn, you start connecting with people, you start making calls, sending emails. You also want to research companies you want to work for. Write customized letters on what you can do for the company as a future employee. There is no such thing as one cover letter that covers all bases. There's a template of what you can write, and the letter has to be tailored to a specific company. Find out the name of the hiring manager for the positions you're interested in. That takes some more research through your connections, through LinkedIn. You can search websites like Indeed and Simply Hired to make online search easier. You may find companies that are hiring for a position that you're not interested in, but the company may sound interesting. So that's another way to find out names of companies. It also helps you to read job descriptions and see, well, what does this title do? And you may not even apply to that company, but you'll learn about a job title and what are the roles and responsibilities of that job title. All right, we've got plenty of time for questions. So here's your chance to ask me questions. Here's someone who put in something into the chat. I made up business cards containing email, cell, LinkedIn, and I hand it out when I tell people I'm looking for a job, which is great. But the important thing is you need to get to know those people. Just sending out your cards, handing out your cards does nothing. They don't know you. They don't trust you. Why would they even recommend you to somebody? You need to build a relationship.
Amy, there's a question from Renee. It says, is the 3 + 3, does this mean 3 questions for each side will fit into a 10-minute call?
Well, you're going to have more than 10 minutes. I mean, you ask for a 10-minute call because you want to be polite and you don't want to take too much of their time. But honestly, once you ask a question or two and you get the person talking, it's going to be longer than a 10-minute call, to be honest. It could be 15 or 20 minutes. The 3 + 3 is you're going to ask them about what they do, what their company does, their career path, and you're going to tell them your pitch, what you're interested in, what your accomplishments are, and your skills. So just like you said, you want to have, if it's not live, you want to have your little Post-it notes attached to the top of your computer, which I'm doing by my hand right now. Or if you were live, you could use the little index cards so that you don't forget what you want to say. There are 3 things you want to say about yourself: your top skills, your recent accomplishments, what do you want, what are you interested, what position you're interested in. It's just to help you remember so that you don't fumfer around during the meeting.
Come on, everybody, wake up. I know a lot of you have your cameras off, you're muted. You must have questions both on
Here
the
we go.
specific things that Amy has presented and in anything else, because she's an amazing coach.
Okay, so here's something from the chat box. I keep hearing it's a job seeker's market, that employers are getting fewer applicants. Might this result in better odds for applying online? Also, do you think it's valuable to apply directly on company websites? Okay, applying online to Monster or Idealist or wherever, or applying on the company website, it's the same thing. All of those resumes are put through the ATS, the Applicant Tracking System. So once again, you need to tailor your resume and make sure it has enough of those keywords and key phrases. Otherwise, it won't pass the ATS test, okay? When I work with my clients, I have access to a sync application, and I can put in the client's resume and job description, and it pops up with, okay, this is what you have and this is what you're missing. It's very clear. Now, you can't put in stuff that you can't do. You can't say you have a skill in financial analysis if you don't. So beware of lying on your resume, because it's very easy to find out what you can and cannot do. If you're going to answer the ads, you still have to network your way into the company. When they say they're not getting enough clients, look, there are millions of jobs out there and there are millions of people looking, but there isn't always a match between the job description, the skills they're looking for, and the people who are looking. There are lots of jobs for Amazon, okay, for pulling things off shelves and packing. There are lots of jobs for delivery drivers. If you're not interested in that, none of those jobs mean anything to you. If there are lots of jobs out there in tech all the time, computer programming, if that's not your field, that's not going to help you. So to hear that there are millions of jobs and millions of people looking is irrelevant. It's you, your skill set, and what jobs are you looking for? Let's see what else is in the chat. Okay, question. Your opinion about working for a previous employer, again, a different boss. All right, you have to ask yourself, did I like working at that company? Did I like the culture of that company? What do I know about this new boss? Can I find out any information about this new boss? Will I feel comfortable? I would never say no to an opportunity. If I got an opportunity to work for a place again, I wouldn't say no. You don't say no until you get the offer and you decide the offer is not a good one for you. If they say, do you want an interview? You say yes. If they say, we're asking you for the second interview, you say yes. When you get to the point of they're offering you the job, then you see if that's really what you want. Question.
Okay, we're gonna hold it 1 second with the questions, since I see there's some people dropping off. So, and I know you still have a lot of questions and we've got plenty of time for people to ask them. So don't disappear. But I am putting into the chat box a link to our evaluation. I see someone just posted something right after it. So just go right above it. Please go now. We're gonna take 3 minutes to fill out this evaluation. Please, I'm gonna do it again. There we go. So it's at the bottom. Please click on the link. The last couple of programs, I've had like 70 people in the group and only 30 filled out the evaluation. It is crucial. I say this every time. I hate to be a bunny that keeps repeating itself, but number one, my speakers are so grateful because I think I'm one of the only people that actually give them feedback on their presentations. And that feedback doesn't come from me, it comes from you guys. And number two, our funders, the reason why we can do this program for free, want to see that feedback. So I'm gonna stop talking, click on the link, go try to complete it. We'll give you 3 minutes and Nancy's going to set the timer and I'll try to play maybe different music this time. So go.
All right, so I'll give you the 3 minutes to fill out the evaluation and then I'll get back to the question and answer.
Absolutely, great.
Okay, 1 minute to go. And time's up.
Okay, terrific. I love Spotify. I'll give a little commercial for Spotify. I can always find anything I'm looking for. I got a little tired of Jeopardy, so I did 4 seasons instead. Anyway, for those of you who didn't have time to finish the evaluation, then feel free to go back to it later. I'm not going to be looking at them right away after the program. And for those of you who didn't do it, please, 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 please go back and do it. Okay, there are questions in the chat room. Take it away, Amy.
Okay, so what was the first 3 of the 3 plus 3? I'll go over that again. You want to ask 3 questions, at least 3 questions, find out about what does this person do on their job, he or she, explain the job, what do they like about the job, about the company, do they like working for the company, their industry. It's really more than 3 questions, but you want to ask at least 3 things about that person's job, their company, their industry, what problems or challenges is the company facing now. Now, the 3 things you're going to say, you're going to give your pitch, you're going to talk about your best skills, and you're going to give an example or 2 about your accomplishments. Then before you leave at the end, the 2 things you're going to ask for, 1, show the person your list of companies. Do they know anyone at any of these companies? And are they willing to introduce you to that person? 2, can they think of any other company or organization that they could suggest you add to your list? Now, someone said, well, I found out someone who works in the company where I want to work, but they said they wouldn't introduce me to someone at the company. How can you get in? So here's the thing. Let's say you know somebody and they know somebody else, but they're not going to introduce you. Find that somebody else on LinkedIn and send them a request for connection. And in your personal note, you always write a personal note, say, we are both connected to, that's the person you know, right? We're both connected to Joe Schmo. I'd like to connect to you on LinkedIn. That's it, okay? So if that person, Joe Schmo, doesn't want to connect you, that's okay. You try to connect privately to that second level connection. Now, let's see, there are some other questions that I missed, so let me go through the questions. Can you possibly show an example of a great resume format pertaining to a certain job and how it qualifies or doesn't to get pulled? No, that's another whole webinar, sorry.
I was going to say, that's another program.
That's another program. I can't do that. If you want a resume template, you can go to my website. I have a free resume template, but it's not a resume. Okay, now.
We do also have done several resume programs over the last 2.5 years, recorded on Zoom and in our JVS YouTube channel, which I've posted a couple times. So go back and watch those.
Okay. Here's another question about the ATS. I've spoken to many professionals, I'm reading this from the chat, who have different opinions of ATS. One says don't use color or formatting. The other says use color and formatting. Don't use formatting. Do not use color. Do not use graphics. Do not use images. Do not use photos. Don't even use columns. It should be a straight Microsoft Word document. That's it. Nothing fancy. If you actually go to a live interview and you want to have a fancy dancy resume with color and columns, go right ahead, but not for the ATS. That's an absolute no-no. I work for 3 different outplacement companies in addition to having private clients, and all 3 will tell you the same thing.
A question, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask out.
Go ahead, Barry.
Why Microsoft Word and not PDF?
Well, it depends on what they ask for. Sometimes they ask for Word and sometimes they ask for PDF. You can use a PDF.
When you're uploading, does a PDF trigger any column issues on an ATS?
It might, I don't know. PDF
I think
is
more
okay.
often than not, when you're on an application tracking system, it will identify for you what is the acceptable format.
Right, they
So
usually
be
tell
careful.
you.
If you send a PDF and they're looking for a doc, it won't read it. It'll say trash and that'll be it.
Right, usually, Barry, they usually tell you, we want a PDF or we want a doc. Let's see, other questions. Oh, here, I've gotten advice that one shouldn't do the ask when first connecting to someone. I don't know, if you're connecting to them, you don't do the ask, meaning you ask to connect. That's your first message. Okay. The first message is, I would love to connect you. You have to see if they want to connect. If they connect, then your second message is, I'd love to get your career advice. And then they say, okay, yes, happy to help. Then you can say, yeah, I'd like to chat with you by phone for 10 minutes. So yeah, again, you don't want to knock the person over. You want to be polite, you want to be professional, and you want to see if they answer you. Once again, alumni are 95% more likely to connect to you and talk to you than a total stranger. Just saying.
I also want to comment on Kim. You wrote that many people on LinkedIn have hundreds of connections whom they do not know, never met, or spoke to. Oops, Elliot, I'm muting you. So my response to that is, it's a numbers game. If I reach out to 4 of my ex-clients to connect with them to someone for a client of mine, and one of them knows the person and actually can connect, I'm thrilled. 25% is a great return rate. So yeah, 3/4 of the time they're going to say, I don't know how I connected with that person. I don't know how I know that person. Get 1 out of 4, or even 1 out of 2. And you'll be lucky that you made it. It's another connection you didn't have. So my response to you, Kim.
Right. Another question. I've not been using cover letters recently, since so many people say companies don't look at them. What's your opinion? Once again, some places will ask for a cover letter. Send your cover letter and a resume. Some won't. The cover letter is the email. If you're sending an email to someone, that is your cover letter. You're not attaching it as a separate document. So the email is your cover letter, and then you can attach your resume. Yeah, some people don't want to read them because they don't have time. They've got so many, but it doesn't hurt to send the cover letter because, again, it can personalize you to the job. The other thing is, your resume better be exactly what they're looking for, because it has to have those sections at the top: accomplishments, skills, known for, so that it highlights what they're looking for. If you start your resume with your job experience and all that, forget it. It's a recruiter, a hiring manager spends 7 to 10 seconds on your resume. And if they don't see what they want to see in the first 7 to 10 seconds, and it better be on the first third of the first page, they're not even going to read the rest of the resume. So it's really very important. Let's see, 2 new messages. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, someone else says every job I apply for requires a cover letter. Usually they'll tell you they want a cover letter. Other questions? This is your chance, folks.
You want to quickly unmute yourself as well, you can do that.
Oh, here's a question. Are resumes only supposed to be 1 page? No. If you are a recent college graduate, and if you have fewer than 10 years experience, yeah, your resume should be 1 page. I have 2 sons, one's 32. He does have about 10 years of work experience. His resume fits on 1 page. I, on the other hand, have been working for a long time. I have a 2-page resume. The only people who should have more than 2 pages are CVs for college professors or college administrators. Those are the only people that I will allow, if they're my clients, to have more than a 2-page resume. If you can't get it on 2 pages, forget it. It's not your autobiography. It's a branding message. It's an advertisement for you to get a job.
Amy, you mentioned professional organizations. I can't stress enough, ROA organizations. I simply went back to my employer, remembered that there were some organizations that worked with us. We had membership in it, but we really didn't bother to join. We would just look at their website and get information. Left. I joined it, and I volunteered, help review papers and whatever. And I found that I had a task that I put member of it, but I did something. Here are these things ready for it. Also, the people on this call, if someone were to simply take a snapshot and reach out to maybe 2 of them a day, next month, you would be surprised. You would build up your connections and whatever. Last thing, to anyone getting an interview or having an interview, if they were to put that in the chat and someone else were to reach out to them and say, you know what, this is coming up next Monday, I'll be more than happy. You know, if you'd like, send me a resume, send me your JD. It's a win-win situation. They will feel empowered or whatever. And I mention these three things because they help me, and you help me just by mentioning them or whatever in that. So thank you very, very much, and good luck to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Other questions?
Okay, after the first interview, when is the best time to follow up? After any meeting or interview within 24 hours. Don't wait. Then if you don't hear from them after a week, you wait 5 business days. If you don't hear, then you contact again. Now, after a rejection letter, is it proper to ask to connect on LinkedIn? Yeah, why not? Because maybe they'll have a different position open at a different time. Never hurts to stay in touch with people with whom you have interviewed, even though you didn't get the job.
I have an ex-colleague who followed up with people who rejected her with the nicest email, and a month later, they reached out to her with another position. She's been there now for 5 years.
There you go. You know, just because they don't give you that job doesn't mean they don't have another one. Again, my son applied for a job at a startup, startup, it had 150 people, startup company that deals with AI, artificial intelligence. And he applied for one job. They interviewed him. They liked him, but they didn't give him that job. But they said, well, we have this other job here. So he took the other job. And then 2 months later, the person they hired for the original job he wanted, they fired. Obviously, they didn't make a good choice. Okay, they fired her after 2 months, and they gave him the original job that he originally wanted. So you never know what's going to happen. Kenesha's shaking her head yes. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Things change. People leave. People get fired.
That's
They don't
true.
like it. The company doesn't like them. Anything can happen.
Question?
Go ahead,
here's a
Martha.
question.
Hi, how are you, ladies? Thank you. My question is, I do have a 2-page resume, and I didn't know basically that I could only have 1 page because I do have administrative, and then I also have the medical. About 5 years ago, in order to help my financial situation, I decided to become a medical assistant. So I put all that information, and it does make 2. So what's the best way to target this resume?
Well, it depends on what job you're going for. You have to take out the stuff that's not relevant. Okay, if you're going for a job in a certain field, you need to highlight the things you've done in that field. You don't need to keep everything in, or you just put the job title, you say other experience, and you put the place in the job title, and you don't have to put in any accomplishments.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good question.
Now, there was another question here that I missed. Hang on. There was one more question in the chat. It is good to follow your target companies. Very smart. Yes, if you have a list of companies, follow them. Go
How
to
do
their
you get me
websites and
background?
follow them. Oh, here's a question. If you apply for a position and before you get connected to someone at the company, you get a rejection, but you know it's an automated ATS, is it not okay to continue with reaching out? Yes, absolutely. I only ask this because I have used this and gotten interviews and apologies for being rejected. Duh, that's why you shouldn't spend all your time answering ads. Write directly to the company. ATS is not intelligent, okay? It's AI, but it is not very intelligent. I'll give you an example. All right, this isn't even ATS. When I was at the Mechanical Engineering Society, I needed to fill a position. So I wrote a job description. I worked with HR. They posted it. They got resumes. They combed through the resumes and sent me several resumes that they thought were appropriate. I looked at them, didn't like them. I marched myself into the HR office. I said, let me look at all the resumes. I picked 3 that they hadn't picked because I knew those people would be appropriate. I interviewed them. I hired one of the women. So even people with intelligence, HR, doesn't necessarily know exactly who would fit that position. That's why you have to write to the hiring manager who's in charge of the department, who knows the position. All righty. This was great. Thank you so much, Meryl, for giving me the
Oh,
opportunity. to
thank
chat
you,
with these
Amy.
people.
And I have to tell everyone that it's all about networking. Amy and I were connected through another networking connection. And Amy actually came on one of our programs a month ago and I needed to fill the slot. And I said, Amy, you want to speak in a month? And she was like, yes. And I was like, yay. So thank you so much. This has been amazing. If people want to stay out a couple more minutes after Amy leaves, then I can field some questions if you also want. But I do want to let everybody know that in 2 weeks from now, we have an amazing program coming up called Leading a Compelling Interview. And we haven't done an interview program in a while. And what's going to be unique about this, and I hope some of you will prepare, is that our speaker will actually do some role playing. She'll look for volunteers. And if people want to, do a little role playing on a question they're having problems with, she's going to do it live on the program. So I really hope you'll come back. If, of course, you haven't then sent me an email before that telling me you landed a job, and I can get very excited about it. I see, Sharon, you have your hand up. Do you have one? Amy's got to go in about a minute. So quick question.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, real quick.
hi, good morning. So my question is, I've worked in the health field for over 25 years and I've been out of work for just about 2 years. I'm looking to return and possibly go into a different field. And I'm looking to alter the resume. And if I want to alter it, can I put it in the objective section?
We don't use objectives anymore. That's old hat. What you should do is you put up on top the title of the job you're going for. That can change. All right. Whatever job title that you're going for, you put that job title in there. We don't use objectives. That's out.
Okay, and also, in between not working, I've been homeschooling my grandchildren for almost 2 years. Am I able to add that and to fill in my resume?
Yeah,
I've also done some volunteer work.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely. That will fill a gap because a lot of people during COVID have gaps. And so that fills the gap.
and then my next statement is, I heard a young lady state that she is in the medical field and she has a medical assistant certification. So maybe this young lady and I can get together and we
Yes,
can have some
absolutely.
sessions,
Put your email.
because I've been in the medical field.
Yep. Put your email in the chat. She should put her email in the chat and you guys can connect.
If she's still on, that's a great idea. And again, just to remind all of you, go back again now and go on those 3 buttons under the chat box and hit save chat. So you make sure you've got the whole chat saved, and then you can go back after the program. Program was recorded. And if you need a copy of it afterwards, before it gets up on our YouTube channel, feel free to send me an email. I did post about 4 times the PowerPoint, but again, if for some reason you're on a phone, you can't get to it, email me that as well. And if you have any questions about JVS, about our services, we're here to help you through this difficult time, but that's all virtual. Thank you to Amy, all of you on the call. This has been terrific. All of our speakers are volunteers, so thanks so much. And this is a holiday weekend, so I hope you all go out there. Remember that it's Memorial Day. It has meaning besides just barbecues. And thank you to all those who have served our country, and we really appreciate that. And please, if you land something, let me know, because it makes my day, my month, my year. And if you're back in 2 weeks from now, we have a great presentation. And please, if you want help with interviewing and you have a particular question you're having difficulty with, don't be shy. Forget that there's 60 or 7 other people on the program. Volunteer, I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. We'll put it in the chat box, and people who are interested in doing some little role playing with our expert speaker, that's what we're going to do in 2 weeks. So that should be terrific. Any other questions? My email's been in the chat box a couple of times, so feel free again to do that. And otherwise, I just enjoy the beautiful weather. It's actually sunny in Paramus in Bergen County, where I live. I know there's someone on from Connecticut, someone on from Chicago. I have no idea what your weather report is right now, but it's supposed to be a lovely weekend. So everybody enjoy, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks if you decide to come back. So have a great weekend, everybody, and just stay healthy. I know I've had more cancellations this week for people who are either have COVID or family members have COVID. It's not over. Just be careful and be safe and stay healthy. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.